I've wanted to try a window bird feeder for years. To be able to see the birds up close from inside the house just sounded awesome. So when Kingsyard reached out to me and sent over two of their bird feeders, including a window feeder, I was really excited. They also sent over a Suet feeder that I'm testing out too. But in this video, most of the action has been around the window setup. I've been a fan of Kingsyard products for a long time, so I already had high hopes. But since I'd never tried a window feeder before, I wasn't sure what to expect. Watching the birds go from curious to completely at ease has turned out to be a really fun and sometimes surprising experience. If you've ever thought about putting up a window feeder, or you're just curious how birds react to something new in their space, this one's for you. And if you end up wanting to try one, I'll share a link and a limited time discount code a little later. Check the description to see if it's still active when you're watching this video. Now let's get into it. A few days ago, I set up a sleek little window feeder and a Suet feeder from Kingsyard. My husband and I decided to place them in an area where we already had other feeders set up, right outside one of the busiest windows in our house. It's a window we walk past all the time and often sit near. So while the birds were already used to seeing us there, this feeder is right up against the glass. We knew it might take them a little longer to get comfortable being that close to us, but since we plan to keep it there long term, we figured it was worth giving them the time to adjust to the daily activity around the window. The window feeder was a breeze to set up. It came almost fully assembled. All I had to do was pop the suction cups on the back. It stuck on solidly, stayed in place through harsh weather, and the removable tray made it super easy to refill and clean. The Suet feeder was even easier, fully assembled with a clean, simple design and intuitive setup. I added a Suet cake and hung it in a spot where we usually see woodpeckers and other Suet fans. Spoiler alert, that feeder's still waiting for its moment to shine. The first couple of days, things were pretty quiet. The birds definitely noticed the new feeders, but they were skeptical, especially about the window feeder. I kept the blinds down but opened the slats, hoping that would help the birds feel a little safer about coming in so close. Even though I knew they just needed time to acclimate, I couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. I was so excited to see who might show up. Still, I opened the slats every morning and went about my normal routine in front of the window, just trying to be consistent and let them get used to me being there. And I did start to notice some signs of curiosity. A few birds would fly toward the window feeder, give it a good look, and then veer off at the last second. Others tried to land on the Suet feeder, but they'd just slip off the rounded top. Close calls, but no takers yet. But on day 3, something amazing happened. The little Carolina wren who had been eyeing the feeder from afar finally took the plunge and landed right on the edge. The blinds were still down, but I had the slats open just like the previous days so the birds could see in but still feel somewhat shielded. And sure enough, this brave little wren seemed to decide it was worth the risk. It didn't stay long that first time, but it came back several times throughout the day, clearly starting to feel more comfortable. And it even persuaded some of its family members to give the new feeder a try. Though this one had a little bit of trouble figuring out just how to get to the food. My husband totally called it that the wrens would be the first to go for it because of their bold personalities, and he was absolutely right. I was so excited, not just because it was our first official feeder visitor, but because I finally got to see this feeder in action. And I have to say, it's really well designed. It stayed secure, was super easy to install, and most importantly, it gives you an incredibly up-close view of the birds, even if you're just sitting on the couch. If you want to try one of these feeders yourself, Kingsyard gave me a 20% off discount code just for my viewers. Use the code NatureCourt at checkout to get the discount. There's a link in the description, but don't forget, you'll need to enter the code to get the 20% off. And if you do grab one, I'd love to hear what birds show up at your window. By day 4, the wren was basically a regular. But then I noticed someone new. A tufted titmouse popped in for a snack, and not long after, a mourning dove, which genuinely surprised me because, first of all, the doves that hang out in my backyard are incredibly timid. But also, I just never imagined a dove using a window feeder. Yet, sure enough, it found a way to awkwardly perch and peck at the seed. It rained on and off that day, but the birds didn't seem to care. The titmouse and the wren both kept stopping by. And thanks to the feeder's design, the food inside actually stayed dry. I was impressed. It handled the rain much better than I expected. Meanwhile, the Suet feeder still wasn't getting much attention. Birds would glance at it or even fly toward it, but no one seemed to figure it out yet. Birds rely heavily on their eyesight to find food. That might be one reason our Suet feeder hasn't gotten any takers yet. The Suet cake isn't very visible inside the feeder, and they may not even realize it's there. We've tried moving it to a more open location that also sits slightly higher, just in case that helps. But for now, it's a bit of a mystery. Still, the window feeder was clearly becoming a favorite, and I was starting to feel hopeful. By day 5, I'd gone all in. The blinds were fully up now. At this point, the birds didn't seem to mind. When I filmed this, it had rained earlier that day, but the seed inside was dry and the birds just kept coming. The Carolina wren, of course, made its usual rounds, joined again by the titmouse and another mourning dove. It felt like momentum was building. The birds were getting more comfortable, and I was starting to feel like this little experiment might actually work. By the time day 6 rolled around, the birds had settled in. They were no longer overly skittish, even with me right in front of the window. And we'd started to get some new visitors. It took this huge white-winged dove several tries to get his courage up, but he eventually settled in too. That afternoon, the Carolina wren hopped into the feeder and just sat there. Not for a minute or two, but for nearly 45 minutes. The blinds were actually down at the time. I was about to close them, but I noticed him through a gap. I moved closer to check on him, shifted around to get a better look, and he didn't budge. He just sat there, perfectly relaxed. It was one of the strangest yet most endearing things I've ever seen. Was he digesting a big meal? Resting after an especially busy day? Or maybe just standing guard over his favorite snack spot? Whatever the reason, I was fascinated. Wrens are cavity nesters, so they're naturally drawn to small enclosed spaces. And they're bold little birds, which makes them a great fit for a window feeder like this one. It hit me that I never would have witnessed this moment without a setup like this. There's something really special about being able to observe birds this closely, on their terms. If you're thinking about trying a window feeder, here are a few tips to make the experience smoother, for both you and the birds. First, use a feeder with high-quality suction cups. The one I'm using has stayed put even through heavy rain and curious doves landing on the edge. Make sure to clean your window thoroughly before installation. A clean surface gives the suction cup something to really grip onto, which makes a big difference. If your feeder is near a window with blinds, try leaving the blinds down with the slats open at first. That way, the birds can see the food and you, but still feel a little more secure while they get used to the setup. Consistency helps. Try to refill your feeder around the same time each day. And don't move it around too often unless it's absolutely necessary. Birds are more likely to trust a spot that feels stable and predictable. Also, make sure the food is visible and stays dry. If it's hard to see or soggy, they might pass it up. And maybe the hardest tip of all, be patient. The birds in our yard are very used to seeing us through the window and in the yard daily. Yet, they still needed some time to acclimate to the new setup, and that's perfectly normal. Some birds may show up the same day, while others might take a week or longer. But when they do come, it's 100% worth the wait. It's been really fun to watch this little window feeder become part of our daily rhythm. Some mornings I'll look out the window and the Carolina wren is already there. Other times I'm surprised who shows up. And while the Suet feeder didn't get a lot of traffic during filming, I'm keeping it up for now. Sometimes the birds just need a little more time to catch on. Thanks for spending time with me. If you're curious about trying a window feeder, or a Suet feeder, or any other Kingsyard feeder, I've added the link and the discount code NatureCourt in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd love to have you subscribe to discover more backyard birding joy. Until next time, take care.